Call meeting to order at 1:01. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous people within whose territory or traditional lands we're meeting today. I don't know why I always want to say territorial. You've all seen the agenda. Will someone move adoption? Seconded. Okay, carried. Everyone's seen the minutes. Were there any errors or omissions that we caught? No. Okay, so 6.1, I'm sorry. I'm doing this again. Hang on, let me get my agenda up. Like I said, I've got a cold and my brain just seems to be a bit foggy these days. So the alternate director stipend, that's where we talked about only one person getting paid if the alternate is used rather than the regular director, and nobody getting paid if nobody shows up, right?
Yes.
And so we have some options in front of us. Who wants to start on this? Have you got any thoughts? Cheryl, Director Graham, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I think if I recall, our question was to staff, what's easier? Do you want to take attendance and pay a stipend to those guys who show up, or would it be easier, because it doesn't happen all that often, to just do a deduction? And it seems to me that the option one is the easier option for staff. So I'm completely fine with that. If you're present, you get paid. If you're not present, you don't get paid. And if your alternate is present, your alternate gets paid. So it seems pretty straightforward, and I'm really comfortable with option one.
Okay, so you're moving option one, Cheryl. Someone seconded. I think we're all in agreement. That seems like the easiest, most sensible approach to it. Are there any more comments, or can we just vote? Okay, let's vote. All in favor? What?
Does there have to be a recommendation?
Carol just moved.
But that's the actual recommendation will be. There wasn't a recommendation made at the last meeting regarding this, so
okay.
We would have to word out a specific recommendation that says.
So let's say the recommendation is that in the event that an alternate attends instead of the regular director, they will receive the allowance, the monthly board meeting. Oh, is it an allowance or?
I excuse me, through the chair. We can probably just shorten it up, because I think what I'm hearing is that if you're not absent, if the director is absent, they will be deducted that allowance, whether their alternate shows up or not. So I don't think we have to talk about whether the alternate comes or not. It should just be if the director is absent from a board meeting, then the alternate director's meeting rate will be deducted from their monthly stipend.
Okay, and if the alternate attends, or that's
doesn't
already
matter.
in
That's
the
already in the policy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine, did you get?
Yeah.
All right. So we now have a recommendation, and we're gonna vote.
Okay.
All those in favor? We're still all in favor. See, I knew it.
No, I just wanted to simplify it so it's about, I think, a simple. Oh, and yes, and we're going to deduct it. So that's option one. So I think we covered off both bases then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I'm sorry, I'm really kind of struggling today. If I seem daft, it's because I am. So we had the two board recommendations, right? Under 6.2, board approve RDC directors meal allowance, that's tying us to the provincial government, right?
No, we're not jumping to that yet.
Sorry, aren't we on 6.2? I'm really not doing well today.
Oh, it's the resolutions in here.
Yeah, it's a
Staff confirmed, resolutions will go to the board as a staff, okay.
yeah,
So
we'll,
there's nothing we have to do under 6.2.
no, yeah, 7.2 is where we review the recommendations.
Okay,
So 6.2, it was just, there was a question asked whether with the, a revised or red line draft would come to this committee. It won't. And it actually won't come to the board when we vote on these recommendations. So the first time the directors and the board will see a revised bylaw will be at the meeting where the bylaw actually comes after those recommendations were voted on.
right.
So if only one recommendation is,
Yeah.
yes, we're not gonna mark up a
bylaw until you know that the changes have been approved.
yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I see heads nodding. Okay, so that brings us to 7.1, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Which would be unusually the first time today. The director's mileage, now, we have a member of the public that would not have seen the document that we're all relying on. Do you want to run us through it? Because you were.
Okay, yeah, through the chair, this document basically addresses the options. If the committee wishes to proceed about paying for additional mileage.
Yeah.
So I think that the discussion should start with is that a direction that the committee wishes to go on, and then we could talk about the options. And I think the one thing to keep in mind is there's a certain assumption that directors do a certain amount of travel under their current stipend, and I don't ask me what that number is, but there's some number, and then there's some through the survey. Several directors have indicated that they felt they were traveling mileage beyond what they feel is expected. So this is a discussion for the committee to have, and then if the committee wishes to pay for that, then we can talk about what those options are.
I think for sure. So there's a couple of things I think. First of all, this is really just for the rural directors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're the ones with the big areas. The rest of you have your close places. And if it's four out of 11 directors, that is it's more significant than 4 out of 20, right? And I agree that there are expectations around driving to certain things and doing certain things, and that's just part of the job. And we all understand that. But I think often too, when it comes to meeting with constituents and stuff like that, you have some flexibility around planning things so that you're not making 5 different trips, but sort of packaging that all together to meet with people. A lot of these meetings, and I think the Ready Grant meetings are one of the ones that really stand out as far as that goes. They're not voluntary. The timelines are very strict, and you can't do it through a phone call or a Zoom or anything. You're expected to be there in person, and those meetings are the ones I think that really stand out as far as that goes. And I've been asked the question too, when it comes to the OCP, you've got 3 electoral areas working together. it works best, maybe 4, I don't know. Works best if you're there in person. Is mileage paid in that instance too? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. So those are my thoughts. Cheryl, please, Director Graham, please go ahead.
So my question is to staff here. I agree with everything Henny's saying. This is the issue seems to be mostly around the ready grants, but perhaps OCP meetings could mostly those are in your area. Perhaps that could become an issue too. So my question through to staff here is like I'm sort of reading the options, but this just came to me. But my question that had come into my mind previously was, could these ready grant meetings, for example, like be considered an RDCK expense where a director could fill out a form for their expenses like that is currently existing? Because there's already a form that exists for expenses. Or would that have to go every time to the board like it does if you're getting reimbursed for a workshop? So that's my question to staff.
Through the chair, so there'd be, I guess, a couple options on one on that. So there could be an annual resolution around that. Here's the travel that we're going to approve beyond committee and other travels. So we could say, yeah, ready grant meetings or any other ones we haven't thought of today. If there's certain events that directors expected to go to, which ones would we? And ready grants are one of them, so that could be a board resolution. I don't know if I put it in bylaw because ready grants might not be here in 2 years, or they might or might not be. So there's a question about putting it in bylaw. So maybe an annual resolution might be the better route to do that, because there might be some other new thing going on, and all rural directors are expected to go to, and it might be better just to address that as an annual or semi-annual basis at the board through resolution.
Yeah, okay. I think I've got Susan first and then Maria.
Thank you, through the chair. My thought is to simplify it. If it's just for rural directors, there's already the rural director amount, which is for education, which we reduced that because it hadn't been used, but maybe broaden the definition of what that funding could be used for, the rural allowance. And because it's in our bylaw, so we could change it from being strictly educational, and they can choose, still put a ceiling on it, but let them choose what they want to use it for. They could use it for education, or they can use it for mileage, but then it has a cap and there's already a mechanism in place. Or an additional one, it's all going to go towards taxation regardless. And
I guess through the chair, I did think about that. So again, just my comments around it is that then it's potential the directors who travel more are going to say, I don't have full access to that. That director travels far less. They could use that to go to a conference. I have to use it for my travel, right? So there's a little bit of I would say a bit of a concern there that it's not necessarily equitable then.
Yeah.
So I would suggest probably not mixing the two.
I think it would further the disparity in some way. Sorry, Maria, go ahead.
No, thank you. So I am open to something around option 3, which is mileage-based reimbursement with travel logs and a cap on it that you have in here, with a caveat that I'd like to put a distance, a distance threshold. So whatever, and I'm not probably the expert on this. I would look at my rural directors of like, what would be a reasonable distance to say, well, anything under 50-kilometer round trip is a reasonable distance. So anything over 50-kilometer round trip would fall under, yes, you can claim your mileage with a log from that, and then put a cap. Like that would be kind of where I would land, is something that does fix that that disparity between rural directors, but still opens it up, because even though like Director Hanegraaff, like your area primarily is within a short radius, there are communities in your area that are like Deer Park is not close. It's not an easy thing to get to. So there are still, even in your area, even though majority of your population wouldn't be in those further out areas, there are still spots that are further out. So I think if we start picking and choosing which rural directors could use the mileage, it becomes more challenging on like, well, what classifies that? But I would be looking at something about a mileage cap of saying a certain amount of mileage. Once you're over that and you have to be at a meeting, then you can claim it up to a certain amount with logs. That's probably where I would land.
I think the rule would have to apply to, you couldn't say it's just for these specific rural areas. It would have to apply to everyone, and then whether the individual directors chose to claim it or not would be another question, right? Director Graham, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm supportive of mostly from what Director McFadden's saying. I like the idea that the director can choose to apply for this or not, because some people it's not a big deal. Maybe you drive a Mini Cooper and you get really good gas mileage, or maybe you're driving a Ford F3500 and maybe it's diesel's now $2.69 a liter. So I like that. I do. So definitely the mileage based. And the minimum 50-kilometer range, I think there is in our whatever salary, like there is an expectation that you have to do some driving. So that I think in previous, and Susan was around in the previous remuneration committee meetings, and I believe that was like one of the items that was kind of agreed, and everybody knows, yes, you got to have a vehicle, you're going to have to do some driving. So if we did say outside the 50 kilometers, but my concern here would be that we would not have this for meetings with residents and meetings that directors can like set up themselves to go to, but meetings that are sort of required in their attendance, that they are not in other ways, that they have to be there. And I mean, now with the option of hybrid, like it just kind of puts that question into my brain of what if there's a hybrid option? Like, are we still going to pay for these directors to, like, what is it now, 73 cents a kilometer? Are we going to pay that? Are the taxpayers going to pay that? Is that fair? So I just would welcome any thoughts on if there's a hybrid option available, do we still pay this? In the case of the Ready grants, the directors have to go in person, so I don't know. Thoughts?
Through the chair, I think in principle that might sound fair, but I think it'd be very difficult to police for 11 directors, and then having to justify that, no, I had to go in person, there was no hybrid option, or I couldn't phone this person for these reasons. And I think if we really start putting some limits around that, it might become challenging. Who's going to then be making the decisions around policing, or is it on the honor system? So that's just my concern with trying to pick and choose.
My thought, as if the director is chairing the meeting, I think we've all experienced how difficult it can be to chair a meeting remotely. You're better off being there in person. I think particularly with the more isolated communities where, they don't bump into their director at Safeway or whatever. For the director to come to those more remote communities it's important. It's important that those constituents get to see and meet their elected person. So I think, I think we have to give people a bit of credit for doing the right and responsible thing. I don't know. Am I wrong? I don't like being wrong. Go ahead, Director McFadden.
Okay, so for the sake of conversation, and you guys can stop me if you don't think we're ready for this, but I would probably make a recommendation to put to the board option C, which is mileage-based reimbursement with travel logs and cap for rural directors with a, and I will start with a 50-kilometer round trip, whatever the word would be, threshold. That has to be above 50 kilometers round trip. If that doesn't seem fair, I'm totally open to changing that number, but that just kind of seemed like a reasonable amount of space for RDCK business. And then with a cap of $3,000 a year. That's where I would start. That would be my recommendation. And then if anyone wants to,
That seems reasonable. I think time will tell whether both the trigger for kilometers and the limit are appropriate or not. Some of this is just your best guess of what's gonna work, I think. Go ahead, yeah.
Through the chair, I'll just throw something else into consideration, having that threshold. So currently right now, we have a number of directors that put in T2200s for all their mileage. And then they have to go for income tax purposes, that's not reimbursed, and then they go to their accountants, and now they have to do a whole bunch of math to figure out what's tax, what expenses apply against that mileage. So when setting a threshold like that means they would still have to do that, because now a certain portion of their mileage is not covered, so they would have to continue to do that. And then the mileage above that, they would be getting, I guess, tax free. So they wouldn't get out of having to do that I would say complicated exercise of doing their taxes. But I mean, if the committee is okay with directors still having to do that, the other consideration, if they're paid for all of their travel, then it becomes all tax free, and they skip having to do. Directors wouldn't have to do that that exercise. So the other option is, if there's an expectation, again, I'm just throwing this out for discussion for the committee to discuss, is if there's an expectation that the director's current stipend includes a portion of travel, you can also consider reducing that stipend and paying for all travel. So that's the other option for potentially for consideration.
Way to go. Go ahead, Director McFadden.
thank you. So my concern with that, is that I don't want to put more work on directors that don't have this problem. Like, by solving one problem, we're creating more work for the other ones. So a lot of the directors, this isn't a problem, but it is for some. And so by doing what you're doing now, I'm expecting all the rural directors to now keep track of all of their mileage and submit it and get reimbursed. And that doesn't solve the problem. So I hear what you're saying. And for me, the primary concern is not that they have paperwork to do at the end of the year to get reimbursed for their mileage. The primary concern is that they don't feel like they're getting paid enough for the mileage that they're driving. So if they have to do that at the end of the year, then I think that that's a decision that those directors can decide. Well, here's your option. Your option is you're still going to do paperwork at the end of the year, but you will get reimbursed for some of your drivings. If that makes sense. So they're still getting extra payment for what their concern is, that they're not getting paid enough for the amount of driving that they're doing, but they're still gonna have to do the paperwork at the end of the year and at the end of the year. Otherwise, we're now forcing the rest of the directors to have to do all the paperwork that they may not be doing, right? So, because it's not a problem for them. That makes any sense. So I hear you. and I would still put it forward to the board in the way that I presented it. And then they can have that discussion at board and decide if that fits the need. That would be a recommendation to fit the need that they're bringing forward. And if they choose to come up with a different solution at board, then we can have that discussion then. But that's still where I would land.
I see Cheryl nodding and Susan is nodding and I'm nodding. Did you have something you wanted to say? Sorry.
Well, yeah, I just had an observation at, so if we're using 50 kilometers as the range and 3,000 as the amount, I did the math and that's 82 50-kilometer trips annually, or close to 7 trips per month using 50 kilometers as the amount is, whether it's a reasonable amount. Some will travel more, some will travel less. It already happens, but is that in itself excessive? Because there'll always be directors who will choose not to, because they'll combine the trip with something else. But there will be those who feel that they have to claim it for personal reasons. So, whether 3,000 as the motion was moved is a reasonable amount.
I think the next committee, if this goes forward, the next committee can look at what the actual usage was, whether people capped out or not, and make decisions around that. Sorry, Director McFadden, please go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to clarify, just to make it clear. I mean that you cannot claim mileage unless the trip is over 50 kilometers round trip.
That's
Okay,
No,
so
I understood that. I was
anything
just
under-
doing some math as an example.
so like if what I'm hearing from some of them is that they're driving 100 to 150 kilometer round trip.
Yeah.
So then that becomes where that, okay, if it's over 50 kilometers, then you can. And you're right, it might not be enough. It might be more than enough. And we won't know until we put something down. So I'm totally open if someone thinks that either the 50 kilometers is too low or too high, or the 3,000. But those would be the two things I would like to see in the motion: is a cap on where it starts and an amount that you can claim in a year.
a trigger and a maximum. Go ahead. Yes.
Through the chair to clarify, so a director drives 51 kilometers, they would get paid, and if they drive 49, they would get 0.
Exactly.
Okay, just to clarify what we're discussing. So it's not kilometers over 50, it's you make a 50 kilometer trip, you get paid for it.
Yeah.
Is currently the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you drive 150 kilometers, you get paid 150 kilometers, not 100 kilometers. Yeah, that's what we're saying. And once you've been paid $3,000, that's it for the year.
3,000. So that's almost 4,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. We'll see what they use to, if you set it too low and people are still struggling with and feeling like they're not getting reimbursed for their travel. We're not talking about their time, we're just talking about their travel. I think that would be not as helpful as we want to be. And I don't think most people will hit the 3,000. I don't think you'll get a lot of uptake, but there are certain areas where a lot of travel is really required, and we need to recognize that it's been identified.
So then, through the chair again, we talked about types of traveling to constituents and all those things, and limiting or not limiting. So this would be basically at the director's discretion. If they were to travel, whatever it was, 125 kilometers to visit a constituent, as long as it's CRA claimable, then we'd be open. If they consider it RDCK business, then it's RDCK business.
Yeah, does anyone want to weigh in on this? Anyone? We're saying yes. At the discretion of sorry, go ahead, Director McFadden.
Yeah, again, I'm open if someone thinks the numbers are wrong. It seems to hit the mark of what the concern has been. So if you feel like the $3,000 is too much and we should start at 2,500, but I am kind of looking at a map and seeing, I'm like, oh yeah, like people could be driving 150 kilometers easily in a round trip to get from one area of their region to the other. And so, anyways,
Yeah.
And that's only 17 trips in a year. So if someone drives 150 kilometers round trip, that's only 17 trips in a year if I do it at 79 cents a kilometer, right? So, unless I did my math wrong, which is possible.
Anyway, yes, go ahead.
And then through the chair, the other considerations you would have are the options of having a board override. So if somebody was really traveling lots and they hit the 3,000, then we could include that in the policy as well. Then they come to the board and ask for, hey, I would. Here's my reasons why I should get more, right?
Yeah. Which may happen with this OCP process that we're going through, because you've got 3, possibly 4 directors who will be attending meetings here. I don't know if you get paid your kilometers for that. And then doing the public outreach. Area K is one of the areas included, and it's one of the areas with biggest geography. So I think having the ability to override the cap in unusual circumstances or extraordinary circumstances, which the OCP process does contemplate a lot of meetings with constituents, which for me personally isn't a problem because my constituents are quite central, but not everyone has that same good luck, I guess, for lack of a better term. Anyway, so I think the override is probably a good idea, just for those kind of one-off years that tend to happen. Thoughts? I've got a thumbs up from Director McFadden.
Doesn't affect me, but if I may, through the chair, I'm just wondering, does this goes then, since it's only rural directors, goes through rural affairs or through the rural S100, S101?
Through the chair, good question. I think some of the rural travel does go to S101, but we would have to have a look at it. And they'd have to confirm that. I believe it does, but I can't confirm for sure today.
So that would be something we need to follow up with, where it gets paid out of.
Yeah. The other thing I would have to follow up on is if somebody's doing 100 kilometer, no, I think we're good. I was getting back to doing 150 kilometers. We're going to pay them the whole trip or the whole trip. Yeah, no, we're good. I was thinking about the tax considerations. And if you're only paying somebody a partial way, then that's not considered tax-free travel. So
I think it's an all or nothing.
All or nothing. Yeah, it has to be.
Go ahead, Director Graham.
So with regards to S101, in the expenses, there's 2 account codes. Well, 3. There's 4. Okay, well, there's directors my allowance and stipend, directors expenses, directors travel, directors mileage, and directors conference. So I think we need to figure out which account code in S1 I'm kind of thinking mileage, like interestingly, there's a
Mileage.
yeah, interestingly, there's a budget for mileage in this, and then there's zero for like 2025 had a budget. Wait a minute, this is an old one, but and then it had zero for future. So maybe that is an account code you could use to track this. It doesn't seem like it's being currently used, but I agree that it should be S101 because it is rural on a rural expense and not an S100 that is like an everybody expense. I think the rural these are the rural directors. This is a rural, these are rural expenses. So I think one of these codes could easily be used for tracking this particular expense. And I do like the $3,000 cap. And I would discourage us at this point from having board overrides and saying like, this is what we're going to try. Because right now there's zero here. So I don't like the idea that we can spend the 3,000 and then spend more. I think the idea of this is to find out, like, is $3,000 enough? It should be plenty to my thoughts. So that's where I land on that.
Yeah, I'm behind either. I suppose if a director really had something onerous going on where they were driving a lot and well in excess of the $3,000, they could come to the board with that, couldn't they?
But that, through the chair, that's the override. So
Yeah,
you either offer the option for the override or you don't.
mm,
So that would be, sorry, through the chair, that would be in policy then. So if we,
okay, go ahead, Director McFadden.
Just for clarification, but we come and make motions around getting paid for a workshop and different things. So I would think that if there is a special case where there's a whole bunch of OCPs going on and there's directors that are being impacted by that they could bring a motion forward for that year saying, to increase stipend or whatever that is for those things. I would think that could, I do agree with Director Graham. I have a bit of concern of if you put an override in there without really knowing how this is going to flesh out, will it be abused? And then maybe not, its intended purpose will not be fully seen because people will be annoyed that someone's abusing it. So I just would love maybe to give it a trial. Nothing's in there right now. So we're giving more than what they have right now. And then if it needs to be adjusted, it can be, but I would be concerned about putting an override in there right up front.
I agree with you. We've all seen motions. Oh, sorry, Susan.
No,
We've all seen motions to pay for this, that, or the other thing. And so I think, under extenuating circumstances, that could happen. Go ahead, Director Hewitt.
No, I agree with both of those things, and I like the predictability for budgeting purposes because it throws out transparency if you build in a mechanism to circumvent the system that we've set up. And then you can't be accountable to the public if you're saying, well, this is our budget, but you can do that. And when, as you said, there's nothing in there right now for outside mileage besides what everybody is eligible for. Go ahead.
yeah, and through the chair, I don't think you would put a negative in and say no overrides.
Right.
So all we would do in this case is not put it in the option to do it.
Right.
And then as we've discussed, any director at any point can come and bring a motion and say, for this is going on and I recommend we pay mileage on top of this. So we would just exclude. I don't think we can put a negative in and say no overrides. We can't do that because we can't prevent directors from bringing motions to the board. So so the committee would just not include an override in the policy.
Yeah. I think all of that makes sense. So
Through the chair, one other consideration that came up, was having some sort of blackout period during the election month and a number of months before that. Just so that if there was any perception that directors were using this as sort of campaigning, and if we're going to use these words.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the right period is. I would say, at least the month of the election and maybe the preceding 2 to 4 months. So I don't know, for a discussion.
Isn't there something about not being able to award grants during a certain period? I think that the same period of time should apply. There's something around not awarding grants, isn't there?
What it is, but yes.
Yeah. So I think for consistency, if nothing else, it makes sense that if you can't award grants during that time, then you also can't be using the excessive mileage provisions to go around campaigning.
Yeah.
So just do the same blackout that we do around the issuing of grants, right? Does that make sense?
Through
Go ahead.
the chair, I guess we would then, whatever that period what is it, 4 months, we put in this policy. So instead in the policy, we wouldn't reference the grants policy because that could change on its own.
Right.
So we would then just put in the policy, whatever that is, whether it's 3 or 4 months, we would just put that.
I don't
hard-coded
think
policy.
it's long.
You don't think it's that?
No, I don't
Okay.
think it is. I think it's
90 days, okay.
during the election window, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's find that out for our next meeting. And I agree, we don't reference the grants policy, but I think there should be consistency between the two. So do we actually have something on the floor?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
That the board approved mileage-based reimbursement for travel for rural directors traveling over the 50-kilometer round trip threshold be based on a uniform cap for mileage of $3,000 per year. And then I have in brackets blackout period, similar to grants. Is that?
Yeah. Are we good with that? Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Was it seconded? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Susan.
It probably won't go anywhere, but just gonna throw it out there to keep directors accountable for the reason for their mileage. So maybe that blackout period might not be an issue, is if it's using a certain account code that perhaps if it is utilized, staff provides a report, or that a director is required to give in a written report or report on their activities that they've done, and they have, because we're supposed to report on what we're doing, but maybe not. Yeah, if you're doing an OCP, it's something significant. It's not just like you were referencing, not just a standard constituent meeting, because that's part of your work. You know that going into it when you're running, but for an OCP process or something of that nature, is that a difficult thing to do?
When we claim mileage, don't we have to say what we're claiming it for? It's the total mileage, the reason for the mileage, isn't that all on the claim form?
Yeah,
Nobody else knows it.
yeah.
Nobody else
We don't
needs to know it.
share that. I might be applicable though. But then, from my understanding, if you were going to, this, again, I think Director Green brought it up, or visiting one constituent, you wouldn't necessarily have to put that constituent's name or what we talked about.
Right.
Because that starts getting into privacy issues, and then we're relying then on, you have to basically rely on directors that if they're doing that visit and they're putting that down, that that's related to what they, part of their duties, right?
Go ahead, Director McFadden. Sorry, you were done, weren't you? Director Hewitt? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't want to put an extra layer of work on staff to have to bring any of that back. I don't think that necessarily would be worth anyone's time for the amount that each director, even in worst case, could misuse in a year. I think we're probably wasting more money by staff having to put reports together than by what they may misuse. And there is some trust around these are elected officials that are spending taxpayer money. So I would hope that they can govern themselves on those pieces. I do know that as long as the sheets that they're filling out do give the reason that they are doing that. Because what might seem trivial to one of us, I think about cases that in my own municipality that I might be having coffee and spending a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours with one person. And on paper, that might seem like a waste of money or time for me. But that one person has tremendous influence in a certain area that I know politically could cause a lot of trouble. And so it may be worth my 3 or 4 hours of time and that mileage for 150 kilometers, right? So there's some nuance to this. And I think that hearing some of those around the table, it is that nuance where there's meetings that they're taking face to face that they feel are important for the region and then want to be able to give flexibility for that. So as long as they're putting that it's for RDCK business, I'm okay with the rural directors governing themselves on this.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Graham.
In terms of transparency for the public, any payment to any director is shown in the AP every single month. So if there was a large payment to a director and someone like, say, another director wanted to ask about why that payment is there, which I have done on occasion, that's there and it's all transparent. So it's not like this would not be public information and seen. So if there was something that seemed unusual, like as we were looking at our monthly AP and we wanted to ask about a certain payment, we could do that. So there is transparency already. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and through the chair, part of that is also that it would be, I think the onus would be on directors, like you said, to self-govern, but to ensure their travel is actually whether you call it tax-free or whatever. So they would have to have in their records or whatever records they supply to us. So I don't think we want staff sort of going through the list and questioning directors. The onus would have to be on directors to self-govern and make those decisions. That what they're doing is they consider part of their duties of being a rural director.
Yeah. Okay.
Through the chair, do you want like a travel log to be added to the recommendation or no? The words travel log.
People have to be responsible for tracking their own travel if they're going to claim it.
Through the chair, they would have to submit a detailed travel log to staff, so we could either prepare a common one, either Excel spreadsheet or something, or say, here's the required information. So it's likely a date, destination, to, from, and what your visit was. So
Isn't that on the current?
Yeah, I would have whatever's on the current expense
Yeah.
expense report form, but we have to look at it because we're expanding its use beyond, because right now current travel is limited to travel for committees or things that are approved or in current policy, and now we are we're loosening that up with this. And so we would, we could provide some guidance around that, but we'd want to have it's sort of a common approach to travel logs.
I mean, I used to do a lot of travel for work, and it was always my responsibility to keep track of to, from, reason, all of that stuff. I mean, I don't think we need to go creating new forms or anything. People, if you're going to claim, you have to be able to justify it and know where you went, when you went there, why you went there, and how far it was.
Yeah,
Did I already say?
yeah, through your chair, we'll have staff look at that and just see, because this is different, because staff currently, when we're paying mileage, we say, oh, it's because of this, it's committee meeting, commission meeting, or this is approved travel. So we would just have to, in some way, have a form that staff says, I'm not gonna worry about this travel, I'm gonna worry about paying out this travel. So we would have to come up with some process or some log where maybe it's split into two. Here's all the board approved travel. Here's the additional rural director travel, and then staff's not going to worry about digging into those further.
Okay, I think staff can figure out
Yeah.
what kind of form they need. I don't think that we need to put that in
No.
this resolution, and people will quickly learn what is required when they go to claim it. Okay, so are we ready to vote on, oh, sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm the
Just
director, Sheila.
just a quick question, yeah. Do you know what the repercussions are of taking reimbursement in excess of your 5,000 kilometers at the higher rate? Because doing the 3,000 divided by 73, which is the current rate, that's 4,100 kilometers. So when you add it to your regular board travel, you're, if a director uses all of that, which most won't, but there could be a situation when they're in excess of that amount.
Yeah, through the chair, good question. CRA guidance is over, once you reach 5,000 kilometers, there's a lower rate for that.
Right.
So we would have to take that into consideration on how we track that, or as to when that rate kicks in.
So meaning staff already does have, do you belong for everybody?
Yeah, through the chair, we generally, most directors don't currently, it's, actually, I can't think of any instances where on currently approved travel, directors are traveling over 5,000 kilometers a year. So once this is added, then the potential for sure kicks us over that, and that will add some additional administrative burden.
Okay, are we ready to vote? I mean it this time. Yeah, okay, all those in favor? Yeah, opposed? Okay, that was easy to count. Let's move on to the board recommendations then. I had that printed off separately and now I shuffled it somewhere. So, yeah.
Yeah. Through the chair, so I'm guess we'll decide soon if there's going to be another meeting, or we're done here and goes to the board. So this could be, depending what we decide today, or sort of our last opportunity to review these recommendations, make sure that we don't want to amend any of them. And once we've done that, and if there's no further business, then potentially this could go to the board in April. If you didn't want that to happen and wanted to consider other items, then we would have another meeting at another point in time.
Okay, Director Graham, go ahead. I think we'll want to have a look at the final thing, but I don't necessarily think we need to get together to do that. Go ahead, Director Graham.
Thank you. So through the chair to Yev. Yev, would it be appropriate for us as a commission to have a motion that says something like that we are looking to retain the current directors' remunerations with the annual CPI increases. Like, I know that's already existing, but I'm just wondering, or maybe a question to someone who's been on one of these remuneration committees previously, if this would be appropriate.
I know from my experience negotiating collective agreements, you only put forward what the changes are. Anything that is not mentioned stays as is. Does that help, Director Grant?
Thank you. I just say this for the purpose of the public. Because the public reading this or the public looking at this, that may not be an automatic assumption that someone from the public might make. So just for the purposes of transparency alone, just to say, and I believe this has been done by other municipalities, and so that's what came to my brain and why I just wanted to ask this question.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if that kind of thing could be in an accompanying staff report that says these are the, like, in general terms, these are the things that the committee were brought to the committee for their consideration, but these are the resolutions that were where change was identified, rather than having it populated with a bunch of stuff that we didn't change, because there's more that we didn't change than we did.
I think you could almost do a preamble to the report that says something like, what you said, we considered these things. We maintain status quo on the CPI increases. Here are the changes we've made. Something like that.
So through the chair, so then that, I guess, would require committee direction to staff to do a report, and then we would be looking likely for going to May then with that, just given the holidays and everything that's coming, and I'm sure that as a committee you'd want to review it all and everything.
That the April week is cuckoo. So I don't feel that there's any real urgency, May is absolutely fine, right? So, yeah. So the direction to staff will be a report with preamble explaining sort of what was brought to us, what we considered, and then the board recommendations.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that work for everyone? Yeah. So does anyone feel that we need to meet again? And I do know that we have public time yet, but I think that we can probably receive documents, proofread, and give feedback without actually gathering one more time.
Good.
I see.
Good staff. Good question. I prepare staff report. Okay. Well, let's leave that option open. Like, if I get to a point and I'm like, if this requires a meeting, then we'll call it, and if not, then that report can go to the May board.
Okay. All right. Okay, so was there anything else on this particular item then? No, I don't think. Okay. Oh, sorry, what?
Yeah, before staff does its report, we should probably just go through these existing recommendations, and just, some of them were done, well, 4 or 5 months ago. Yes, these are all approved by the committee. So we should just go through them, and before I put them in a report, and just ensure that we don't want to, the committee doesn't want to amend any of them.
Does anyone want, Susan?
Well, yes, both of the ones from the January 27th meeting, I just want to offer something for your consideration. With the first one, regarding workshops, I just wondered if it could be specified that they're half-day workshops rather than full day, because a full day is a huge commitment for somebody to give up a full day without getting the additional stipend and expenses. Although, yeah, I thought we didn't do it for expenses. I thought we left it that we were going to cover expenses, just not stipend.
Yeah, that's the way I know. Okay. And thanks for the reminder, because this is triggered when we talked about this too. We said it would be the first 3 workshops of the year, and that's just a clarity piece. I don't think it really changes anything. Director McFadden first, and then Director Graham. That's the order I saw you in.
Great, thank you. It is worded, it says, and not draw additional stipend, comma, and related expenses be paid as per board policy.
Oh,
Right.
So
alright.
the related expenses are being paid as board policy is the recommendation. So the recommendation's right.
Okay, I missed.
Okay.
And on the workshop piece, I'm actually okay with leaving it as is because I'm not sure where I think it'll be an interesting conversation at the board table. If the board decides to put that stipulation as a whole, I'm okay with that. But I'm also okay if they chose to say that it's a full day is okay too. So I would love that to be open enough because I don't know if I have a set recommendation specifically for me from that. But again, that's just my perspective.
Okay, thank you. Director Graham.
My additional comment here is that workshop placeholders are typically done during board week, and they're typically for half day because there's CSLAC meetings ahead of time. So, and I can go either way on this as well. If they're full day or half day, I'm good with it. I think if directors are aware that there's going to be 3 a year that you don't get paid for, whether they are full day or half day, that's part of the job now. So I'm fine with it and leave it to the board to decide what they think. I'm fine with that. And I was going to say the exact same thing as Director McFadden. So thank you for that.
Okay, and I'm really ambivalent on it. So I think maybe the best course of action is for you to raise this when it's at board and see if the motion gets amended there. All right?
And
And on the carpooling, kilometerage, go ahead.
I think we need to add additional wording because right now it says the board approved director carpooling mileage expenses for conferences equal to total airfares and related expenses for the number of people traveling together. I think it should say, but not to exceed actual expenses. Otherwise, then you're paying for 2 people's travel at 100% to 1 person when they're not really entitled, right? If I'm traveling, cutting in half the amount of mileage, otherwise it defeats the purpose. Because
I don't know what you're saying.
well, if I am getting your 500 kilometers to travel back and forth to an airport, and that's the global, however it's worked out and worded in the policy, that if says it's $750 each person is entitled to get reimbursed for, and so it's $1,500 for 2, but my actual expenses for mileage is less than that. Am I still going to get the amount? Well, that's the way it's worded in my opinion.
So it should say approved carpooling mileage expenses equal to a maximum of the total, because that's what we were never saying that you automatically, the mileage is the mileage. You don't get whatever the airfare is, regardless of how far you drive, because that's the opposite to the problem that we had where mileage was being capped at a single airfare when multiple directors were in the vehicle and the mileage was over what the single airfare was. So, I think if there's some clarity that needs to be achieved, that's fine, but it was never contemplated that you get twice or however many times the airfare and expenses regardless of how far you drive. Go ahead, Director Graham.
This issue is dealt with on the expense form when you put the number of mileages in, when you're making your claim.
Except that it used to be capped at one airfare, even when there were multiple people in the same vehicle.
That's correct, but we're just saying here, we're just changing the cap. We're not changing the expense form that now how many people you have, like it's just a change in the cap, that's all it is.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, if inserting one or two words, because basically Director Graham's correct that it's the carpooling mileage expense cap.
So mileage, maximum expenses for, if you put maximum in, carpooling mileage, maximum expenses, would that?
I was just gonna suggest adding not to exceed actual mileage travel.
Well, it is, that the mileage is the mileage, it contemplates the mileage, right? I mean, this shouldn't be that difficult, should it?
Well, I don't even know why airfares is in there. It's because there's a convoluted formula that staff uses to calculate what the maximum is for everybody as a global right? That.
Well,
Yeah.
If it's cheaper to fly and you choose to drive, then your mileage is capped
Right.
at the airfare. That makes sense, and that's dead common. Well, it has been in my experience with other organizations that you don't see a financial benefit by driving rather than flying. That's just pretty standard. So then the question comes, if your mileage exceeds the airfare, but there's more than one attendee in the vehicle, that's what we're trying to deal with, that it not be capped at, sorry.
I'll give up.
Oh, well, don't give up.
No, I think it needs to have, I personally think it needs to have clarity.
Okay.
Because total airfares, right, is not just airfares. It's airfares and the related mileage to get to the airport, because different people use different airports. And yeah, if you can explain how staff calculates, because I know I've had mine reduced because we've traveled to an airport to get more economical airfare and the overall cost is less, but had been penalized mileage wise by making that choice to reduce cost overall to their RD.
Oh, so this is a new problem that we didn't discuss when we were discussing.
Well, I think that's where that arose, is that there are those cases where somebody does that and you take somebody with you to further reduce the cost of the RD. But that's the way my mind works, I guess.
Okay,
well,
I'd like to hear Deb's explanation.
Yeah, so through the chair, I understand what you're saying, and we've stuck to the policy of just using one airfare, and I hear what you're saying that's sort of a unique circumstance. Now we're doing something completely different, because the easy ones are when one director chooses to drive to Vancouver instead of taking a flight, or two directors do. But if you're now going to a completely different airport than you normally would have, and there's two of you, so how are staff supposed to do that calculation? So I think I need to think a bit about how, I know where you want to get to, so how do we word that to capture that situation?
So sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that normally you're not penalized if you're going to an airport.
Yeah,
It's when you're traveling instead of flying to a destination. That's my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
yeah, that does make
Yeah.
sense, because why would you drive to an airport if you're driving to the destination? So this is, what you're talking about is a different situation.
So, but it's, sorry, I'm speaking,
But-
but I'm not being.
No, no,
I should wait for you to recognize
oh,
me again.
I recognize. I'm just trying, so normally you would fly out of Cranbrook, no?
No,
Castle,
it depends where we're going. What's most,
Kelowna.
yeah,
If you
whatever
really
is the
wanna
most
get-
economical combined, right? Because airfare is cheaper out of Kelowna. You get direct flights, less days, and I do all my the travel arranging for Leah and I when we have gone to FCM meetings, and I find the best deal, even if it's not the most convenient for me.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, would anything in this hinder what you're suggesting? Cause you get paid your kilometers to the airport and then you fly, I mean.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there, your kilometers wouldn't be restricted no matter how many people you have in the car, because there's no equivalent airfare. Right? Unless Castle opens an airport all of a sudden.
I just think it leaves it open to more.
Okay, so
From
how do
equal
we,
to total airfares, but there's airfares and mileage, right? You gotta look at the whole package.
but we're only talking about the limit around mileage expenses as it relates to airfare. That's what this is talking about. It's not changing, people
Correct.
getting paid to drive to the airport. Which I would never claim, because it's probably less than 5 kilometers for me, but
Yeah.
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, we could take what it says in current policy and change the wording and the recommendation to maybe reflect that, I think, what we're talking about. Cause I can see why this currently, the way it reads is you're gonna, director's gonna, are gonna get paid total airfares related to that. We could change it, just take the wording or from the policy where it says directors will be reimbursed. Now this is how we would change to directors will be reimbursed for travel in the amount of the lowest quoted airfare for the number of directors traveling together, or the actual mileage to the destination, plus
Whichever is
hotel
less.
parking, whichever is less.
That's fine.
So we can, if we can do that, just add those wording, and then that would slide right into the policy, and I think would cover that off, so.
If that, are we satisfied that clarifies it? Is everyone satisfied? Susan, are you satisfied?
I think
I mean,
so. Well, I'll see when it's written out, whether it,
Okay.
um,
How about directors McFadden and Graham? Are you satisfied with that? Yeah. Okay, so if you go ahead and make that, that'll be
Okay.
part of what we received. Susan, sorry, Director Hewitt, I'm so not used to calling people by their last name.
thank you through the chair, something that you had just stated is which I'd forgotten was a concern for me, and I think it should be for everybody, is the lowest quoted airfare now does not even allow, it only allows you a personal item. It doesn't allow you a carry-on bag. So we might need to change that,
Yeah.
because then there's no option for you to take anything.
Yeah,
Who's gonna
I
travel on a plane with
I
just a
think-
suit, a handbag?
It needs to say including a carry-on item
And a
and
check-in.
and one checked piece of luggage, yes. If, I think that's reasonable. Might be why I drive, so I can carry all the shoes I want.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Lotus,
think that
Lotus
you
quoted
said
airfare, including carry-on and one check-in.
one
Yeah.
check
For
bag, yeah.
Total number of people traveling together or the actual mileage. Okay, no, it makes sense.
Yeah,
It's clear direction to staff that, because
Yeah.
you're right, you think, well, look, you can get to Vancouver for $200. No, you can't.
you can. No, well, yeah, and
Yeah.
like, I think they're up to $55 for a checked bag, and I don't, and we're
50.
all, when we're traveling, we've all got to carry on for our laptops,
Yeah.
if nothing else, right?
The Lotus, so the Lotus quoted airfare, including a carry-on and checked baggage. And one,
Yeah,
and one checked
one
baggage.
checked bag.
Okay,
Oh my God. And then we're gonna take this to board and they can all have their way with it, so. should
Well,
be
it's better that we
interesting.
have the discussion here,
Yeah,
we know,
yeah.
that we can
No,
answer
it's
it.
good, it's good to cover that lot. Okay, so is there any more discussion on this? I'm gonna call for public time, then we have one member of the public, Doug. Did you want to ask anything or say anything? Please feel free to unmute and go ahead. Doug. I think Doug is fine without talking to us. Okay, and so next meeting, we'll play that by ear and see whether we actually need to meet in person or if we can do it in some other way. Now that the roads are good, we'll just do it remotely or something. All right, someone wanna move adjournment then? So moved, secondly carried. Okay, thank you everyone for your participation. Look forward to seeing you in person at some point, not too distant future.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.